You know it.
You tell the story.
You tell the whole damn world this is bear territory.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Let's
Here
go.
you go.
Welcome to Tell the Whole Damn World. We're the podcast that celebrates all things Cal and the prominent people associated with UC Berkeley, known to many as the center of the universe. We hope to put a smile on your face and help you come away feeling good about your connection to the greatest university on the planet. If you have friends who went to Cal, please tell them all about us. It's Monday, August 4th, 2025, and as we always like to say around here, even if it's been a very difficult week with a passing of one of our most beloved golden bears, it's another great day to be a bear. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Reza Serafinijad. As I just noted, it's been a sad time for us and many others in the Cal community. I want to pass along my deepest condolences to the Permall family. Dr. Nadison Permall passed away on a Cal Discoveries trip a week ago today. He earned his bachelor's, master's, and PhD at Berkeley and was so tightly interwoven into the fabric of the university. Many in the campus community are mourning his passing. As a professor on campus and former president of the Cal Alumni Association, alumni secretary of the Order of the Golden Bear, and sponsor of the decal course titled Cal History, Spirit, and Traditions, Nad was one of my most cherished mentors. He exemplified the very best in all of us and served as an inspiration to generations of Cal fans and everyone associated with UC Berkeley. Nad was one of the first people I talked to about the vision for the podcast before I met Ahmad, and we were fortunate to have him on as our featured guest in episode 3. And in many ways, this podcast is a reflection of his spirit, bridging the world-class academics that Cal offers and his incredible passion for Cal athletics. As I said when he was awarded the Berkeley Citation a few weeks ago, he will always be the personification of Fiat Lux. As he no doubt would have wanted us to do, we press forward. Do you remember how incredible it was to be a Cal fan under the glory years of Jeff Tedford? Well, you're going to love this episode because we are thrilled to welcome the quarterback of the most recent Cal team to win 10 games in a season, Nate Longshore. On a team stacked with talent offensively, including Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson, and Alex Mack, he was the most important player on the field and was a primary reason that 2006 team cemented its place as one of the greatest teams in Cal history. And we've got a bit of a cliffhanger for you in this one. You're going to want to stick around until the end to find out if he ever got to meet Jessica Simpson. Before we get to our interview, I want you to know how much we appreciate all of you out there listening and watching. Please tell all your Cal friends about us. You can tell them to go to tellthewholedamnworld.com or just share us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Tell the Whole Damn World, and you can follow us on X at Win4Cal. That's Win, the number 4, Cal. Speaking on behalf of all of us here, thank you so much for listening and watching. We appreciate you more than you know. And remember, if you live in Richmond, please consider voting for my co-host, Ahmad Anderson, for mayor of Richmond. There's no question he would do wonders for the city of pride and purpose. Hang on, and I'll be right back with Ahmad, the Hall of Famer who created Bear Territory, and we'll have a lot of fun reliving some of the glory years of Cal football with one of the greatest quarterbacks in school history, Nate Longshore. Cal has had a lot of great quarterbacks. It's a well-known fact that Cal has produced more quarterbacks that have gone on to start in the Super Bowl than any other program, with 5 former signal callers who have achieved that feat. Now, if I ask you to tell me how many Cal quarterbacks have taken the Golden Bears to a 10-win season, what would you guess? Well, that unfortunately is a pretty short list. Since the days of Pappy Waldorf, we've had only 3 such seasons. Was Joe Kapp on that list? Nope. Steve Bartkowski, Joe Roth, Jared Goff? Nope. Nope and nope. Going all the way back to 1950, we've got Mike Pawlowski with that incredible 1991 team that pounded Clemson in the Citrus Bowl. Aaron Rodgers with the 2004 team that everybody knows should have been in the Rose Bowl. And our featured guest today, who was the leader of the sensational 2006 team that won a share of the Pac-10 championship. Nate Longshore will always be very fondly remembered by Cal fans for being the guy who, together with Marshawn Lynch, Justin Forsett, Deshaun Jackson, Lavelle Hawkins, Robert Jordan, Craig Stevens, and Alex Mack, was part of arguably the most talented offense Cal has fielded, maybe ever. And it wasn't just the offense. That 2006 team had one hell of a defense as well, with Brandon Meebane, Desmond Bishop, Damian Hughes, Mickey Pimentel, and Zach Follett, just to name a few. It may be hard for current students to imagine, but Cal was a national power that was regularly featured on ESPN each week. They were a damn good team, and the whole nation took notice, rising into the top 10 after 8 straight wins. Memorial Stadium was packed to the brim each game as fans from all over the Bay Area recognized they were witnessing greatness on the field. It was an electric time to be a Golden Bear fan. And Nate Longshore was the man at the most important position on that team. He was the face of the Cal program, the confident and tough as nails quarterback who threw such a beautiful deep ball, it rivaled the passes Aaron Rodgers used to throw. Nate came to Cal and redshirted the 2004 season behind Rodgers and won the starting job as a freshman in 2005 before breaking his leg in the opening game of the season. He then burst onto the scene in 2006. He led the Golden Bears to a 10-3 record that season, culminating with a 45-10 shellacking of Texas A&M in the Holiday Bowl, where he shared MVP honors with Marshawn. Cal claimed a share of the conference championship for the first time since 1975, when Joe Roth was slinging the rock. And the following season, in 2007, with Longshore under center, Cal climbed as high as number 2 in the nation after a 5-0 start. To say that these were magical times would be an understatement. In his career at Cal, Nate threw for nearly 6,800 yards and 51 touchdowns, marks that both stand in the top 10 all time in school history. Nate has since transitioned into a coaching career, currently serving as the tight ends coach at UNLV, but we all know he'll always be a Golden Bear. And as we sit 1 month away from the start of the 2025 Cal football season, we couldn't be more thrilled to have him with us here today. Welcome to the show, Nate. We appreciate you making the time.
I appreciate that generous introduction. You could have just said the man that handed the ball to Marshawn, and everyone would know exactly who you were talking about. But I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here.
Hey, you cannot sell yourself short here, Nate. I mean,
I had the best seat in the house. Let's be real.
That's a great way to put it. Well, going back to your high school career, you were one of the top quarterbacks on the West Coast coming out of Canyon High. You were a parade All-American. What made you decide to come to Cal?
It was interesting. I grew up in Santa Clarita Canyon High School, and our top rival was Hart High School. And through those games and that rivalry, I was a ball boy my entire youth, elementary school, junior high. So I got an up-close view of Kyle Bowler. And so Kyle Bowler competed against my brother all through high school. And then they ended up on an all-star team together in the postseason where I, volunteered to be a ball boy for the all-star team and got to meet Kyle Bowler. We became kind of family friends. And as Coach Tedford was kind of mentoring him is when going into my senior year as a high schooler, and he called and said, "Hey, you really ought to check out Coach Tedford. he knows what he's talking about, and the school's unmatched. So that kind of got my interest going. And then after doing some more research and getting to know everybody, that was the perfect fit for me.
Yeah, for Cal fans who don't remember that era or that time, but Tedford came to Cal 2002, and with Kyle Bowler as a senior, kind of turned everything around. We went from a 1-win season under Tom Homo the previous year in 2001, and led us to a 7-win season. And so that was like quite a dramatic turnaround there back in 2002, just in this very first season. And then you had Aaron Rodgers in 2003, 2004. And it just kind of set the stage where all of a sudden people knew Cal was a force to be reckoned with. And we started to get all these really talented players who knew and had heard about Cal. It's like, oh, Cal was the place to go if you want to play football. So, yeah, that's a great story. And I didn't know that about your relationship with Kyle. Taking you back through your career at Cal, I want to focus, of course, on that 2006 team. How did it feel to lead the team to a 10-win season in the Holiday Bowl blowout of Texas A&M and to win a share of the Pac-10 championship? What does it mean to you to be such an important part of Cal football history?
So when you're in the moment and you're getting ready for a season, every season everybody feels great. You're undefeated. As you go into camp and you're sweating those 2-a-days, it's not as hard as it would be if you already had some losses on you, So everyone feels pretty good in camp, kind of like right now if you see anything on NFL Network, every team's going to win the Super Bowl, just ask their owner, right? So we're all feeling pretty good going into the season. But as the practices progressed, we were just so strong and talented at every position on both sides of the ball. One-on-ones every day was like, you're watching Pro Bowlers go at it. Then you could look at O-line, D-line, same thing. You're looking at backfield versus linebackers, same thing. So across the board, there was so much talent, and we knew if, every game there would be no reason talent-wise that we wouldn't and shouldn't be favored to win those games. So it was kind of a special time knowing we had the talent to beat anyone that we faced. And that becomes you learn as you go, that becomes a whole new set of problems. The stress and the pressure of each drive, of each series becomes amplified just because hey, we should be moving the ball, we should be scoring every drive. Defensively, we should be getting a stop every drive. And then those things kind of compound over time. But athletically and as a team, it was a very good time to be a Bear. That's for sure.
Well, I got to say, we've been posting a lot of stuff on Twitter and X to let people know about the different episodes for the podcast. And it was, got to give a shout out to Doc Seuss 84 on Twitter, who put together this remarkable 52-minute highlight clip. I mean, like, that's not a clip. That's a movie of your highlights in particular, Nate. So
I couldn't believe, because that means he had to sit through 18 hours of follies and poor play to find those 52 minutes. So that was impressive of him to find and put together, and I appreciate all the labor that went into that, because I know he had to watch through some horrible play too. So I appreciate it.
Well, hey, that just goes to show you. I mean, there are passionate Cal fans, to be sure, right? Willing
Absolutely.
to put in that time and effort. And just for people on the Calgorithm to check it out. But I watched a good chunk of that, and it's like, oh, yeah. I mean, those just brought me back to those glory days and just how much fun you guys must have had as a team out there. Because, again, you guys were, had the hype, but then you backed it up out there on the field. Want to talk about some of the different games in particular. There was the Washington game in 2006 when you guys went into overtime, and then Marshawn ended it with 2 quick runs. Like you said just before we hit broadcast, that he broke seemingly like every tackle to put the game away and to win it in overtime, and then went on his famous golf cart ride. And then there were losses like the one at Arizona that was a classic trap game prior to the USC game that, it was just like, oh, it was so close. You talk about a game of inches, and Deshaun had a touchdown reception, or seemingly was a touchdown reception, but barely touched the sideline, and we didn't end up in the end zone. What kind of lessons do you still take with you today from those highs and lows in your Cal career? And what was going through your mind when you saw Marshawn jump in the golf cart and take off?
So as you get into the coaching and kind of you recognize just the importance of every play and of every moment and how those edges become so thin. As a player, you don't really, you're so quick to move on week to week just because you have to. That last game is really only important for the 10 minutes right after, and then it's okay, who's the next opponent? And you're getting scouting film right after the game. You get on the plane and you've got a new laptop loaded up with the next opponent. But as you look back and you reflect of those games, it was interesting. When we played Washington, there was a drive late in the game, and we weren't throwing the ball well. I'm gonna blame it on the wind, but I have a lot to do with that, right? So we're not throwing the ball well, but we have a 2nd down and 1, and they stuff us, and we have a 3rd down and 1, and they stuff. This is like, I think, in the 4th quarter. And then we have a 4th and 1, and they stuff Marshawn. And it's like on the 10-yard line, and it's a close game. And, they had 9 guys in the box. We couldn't block them all, and they got him. Like, that'll happen. And so he was pretty hot about that. So we ended up back down in the red zone, and they're stacking the box again, and Coach Tedford calls a pass on the 3rd and short rather than go for the run because we just got stuffed on the last drive. And it falls incomplete. I'd never seen anybody so angry like Marshawn was after that, calling that pass rather than giving it to him on 3rd and short. And so he was extremely heated, and we kicked a field goal and on 4th down and take the lead or whatever. But we end up in overtime, and he's just like, matter of fact, like dead in the, just give me the ball. We're like, all right, take it. And then he runs over the whole team and scores. But you fast forward to the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I'm like, they better give him the ball or there's going to be bad news. And then the Seahawks make the same mistake we made. And so I can only imagine Marshawn had a flashback to, that's what you get when you don't give me the ball, So I think him driving the golf cart around was just a release from the frustration, and then to, finally getting to his moment to shine and kind of carry the team on his back and help us get that win. And it was a pure celebration. You don't get those moments a lot in sports when you finally can really release and enjoy it. So
That's right.
It's a great moment in time, a great capture of that raw emotion.
For sure. That's for sure. Got to talk to you a little bit about the 2007 season now. And you guys were just lights out, incredible to start that season. You started out 5-0, had that dramatic win up at Austin, where Marcus Ezef knocked the ball loose and it was a touchback, and you guys came away with a win. That was super dramatic, and I just remember screaming at the TV. I was so excited that had happened, and you guys rose to as high as number 2 in the country. But you got injured, and pretty badly injured. Now, you are a tough dude. I think you hid that injury as best you could. And I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what can you tell us about how difficult that was for you as a leader to see the team kind of unravel after your injury? And, we ended up finishing the season 1-6. It's just heartbreaking to think what could have been.
So again, we know going into the season we have a really talented team, and then we open up. We were the featured game, so they had ESPN's A team there we open against Tennessee in that game convincingly, and we're kind of rolling. And we go into Autzen, and Autzen is college game day. So that morning, and because we're on the West Coast, they shoot college game day at like 6 o'clock Eastern, so it's 3 a.m. It's dark in Eugene, but when they film that thing, somehow my phone number ends up on College Games. That was kind of going around that year of the kids on the opposing team. However, you would sign up for Facebook back in the day, you had to put in your phone number. And because it started with just the schools, you're like, oh, what does it matter? Anyways, so I wake up, I have 9,000 text messages to my little Nokia. I'm like, what is going on? And just every Oregon Duck fan, just every inappropriate thing they could think. And I'm curious by nature, so I got to read some of these because some of them are pretty good. So after like 50 or 60, I was like, all right, I got to put this away until after the game. It's a close game. They're a good team. We've got a good team, and they don't have good ball security towards the goal line, and that's on them. They put the ball in jeopardy out of the end zone, and we end up winning the game. And then late in that game, I get hit low, and something happens to my ankle. But I'm already slow, so I'm like, we'll just tape this thing up, and we'll just try to play through it, and we'll, give me one leg, and I'll try to play. And that's kind of, as a player, you want all your players, like, I don't care if I'm injured, let's play. Like Ronnie Lott, cut my finger off, let's keep going, So that's always got to be the mindset of the player. And now whether or not that player still gives you the best chance to win, that's for the coaches and the team to decide. So, you should want all your players to play. And naturally, I wanted to play. You give a quarterback a chance. Hey, you want to be on an undefeated team, number 2 in the country, but your ankle's going to hurt a little bit. Like, yeah, they better want to play. So that's kind of how it was. Looking again, hindsight, the numbing agents that I would get before the game, because of my size, and then you're out there doing physical activity, it would wear off. And so I would feel like I could still play and move and do the same things in the second half as I could in the first, and that wasn't the case. And so as I'd go and try to make throws late in the game, they would feel like, oh, that's going to be on the money. And then it's just short enough to where it gets tipped, and now it's picked, and now it's, so the wheels kind of fall off. And that's kind of second half of games, and then the second half of the season, you kind of go from, having these national championship aspirations to kind of a losing streak. And that's not ideal for team morale and then motivation and execution. But again, all those games, we probably should have won most of them, and lack of execution a lot by me in the second half. You lose those close games. It's the same thing you find over time is like there's such small edges in these games, and you make one or two errant passes late in the game, and a game you should win, and you don't. So that's kind of how it goes. And you look back and what if, and the street's probably littered with, stories of attrition for teams that could have been with guys that get injured. And that just happened to be one of those years for us too.
Well, I mean, I got to say that you basically downplay your role on this sensational team. But the fact that the team really came apart to a large degree after your injury just speaks to just how critical it was for you to be fully healthy. And that's no question that you were essential to the success of the team that year. So yeah, I mean, and hey, I'm not the kind of guy to dwell on things that went wrong or sideways or whatever. When I think of you, I just think of, man, all the glory and all the great stuff that you helped bring to Cal. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. We had a heck of a time doing it. I promise.
Well, I experienced that a little bit in my first year as a freshman. When I started, we went out. We had Rich Campbell as quarterback. We had Michael Buggs as wide receiver, and Matt Booza, and a great defense. A host of guys: Ron Hill, Boone Shaw, and guys like Rich Dixon that played with me at that time. And we start off 5-0, and we think the world is just nothing but roses, right? And we play UCLA with Kenny Easley, and they rocked our world on television. Briefly, it was on television, and then whatever they switched over to another broadcast because it was not going well for the Bears, and we ended up going 6-5, and ended up going to the Garden State Bowl, and that's when they had about 17 bowls at best. Now they got 340 bowls, from the Sugar Babies Bowl to the Winky Dinky Dog Bowl. So it is crazy, but it is an interesting feeling when you're on a team as a young guy, and many of the folks had played on teams that had done well in their high school or in some JUCO cases back then, and you lose that game, and it starts to hit you like, oh, now this is real. This is real, and you're continuously trying to get it back together again, and your body's hurting, your mind's playing games with you. Fans are kind of like, where you at? But it's sort of like Saban says, when his team, so often they were winners, always at the top. And he started to look around, as you know now, as a coach, and I've coached a little bit myself. You start looking around in the eyes of guys, and you see that blank stare in their eyes, even when they're going 100 miles an hour, and they should be running all the way through. They get to a spot, and you could just see their body just sort of. And he says, he used to pull them in the locker room, and he says, "Okay, they scored. Now what? So what?" This is when the game begins. And then that's when you know what you have as a team, what your abilities are as coaches, because coaches have that look in their eye as well. It takes a lot to be a coach, and it takes a lot of the history that you've been through. And I wanted to ask you a question, and we're going to get back to these other ones, but it really sparked my interest because there's so much about Cal athletes, student athletes, that people don't know. They wonder where they are today and what they're doing. And part of our show is bringing that back and letting them know that yes, they are superheroes, but just like Clark Kent, they put on their glasses, their cat, and they go to work every day. The thing that I think is outstanding, many things about you, my man, is the fact that you went on to take post grad courses at Cal, Harvard, Texas, and tell me what inspired you to do that, and then how you have applied that along with the sports mentality that you brought to the game, and what you're doing now as a coach and how you see your players.
So I think I've always just been naturally curious. Like I enjoy learning and finding out about things, and I'm one of those obsessive. Once I want to know something, I'll stay up till all hours of the night to learn enough to where I'm satisfied before I'll go to sleep. And so a lot of those post grad stuff was done on emerging markets. So I did blockchain and cryptocurrency there at Cal, and then I did at Harvard. I did some computer science work there, and then fintech stuff at Texas. How does all this technical trading work? What's the end game? What chance does a real schlep like me have trading against all these professionals? All that
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
stuff. And then getting back, football always has a special spot in my life and in my heart for just the lessons, and I enjoy being around the kids and the boys and seeing them grow and mature and develop on and off the field.
that's right.
So recently, getting into, I had done knowledge transfer stuff with a virtual reality company, kind of when that was up and coming. And
Hmm.
their background was like big simulators for oil rigs and
Sure.
offshore drilling. Like they got to practice somewhere so that when they mess up, they don't blow up
Yeah.
the $1 billion rig, right? So they
Right.
simulators for everything. And then so they asked, okay, what can you do with sports, with football? Can you take this out to some coaches and see how we could maybe train quarterbacks or train defenders or whatever. And it ended up being a little bit more robust than what was needed. Our best product was actually in baseball, and you could be in the batter's box against whoever you were facing that night. So if you're on the Giants and you're facing Kershaw that night, it would pull up. Baseball just does a better job of tracking different data. So drag coefficient and launch angle and all that, spin rate, all that stuff is tracked in baseball. So you can recreate digitally to a high degree of accuracy kind of what happened, and then plug that into some different technology, and you could be in a virtual batter box, kind of when you're in the hole. So teams would build that out in their clubhouse, go in, take some virtual hits before they come out, warm up, and actually face them in the bottom of the 7th inning. So it was kind of cool to get into that technology space. But again, I missed the connection with the players and development. So I got back into coaching, learned, I wanted to kind of expand and learn the run game a little better. Tight ends are kind of the ones that, similar to quarterbacks, know everything there is about the run game and the pass game just because they're attached to both so heavily.
Yes.
So that was kind of a natural fit there. And then kind of completing the full circle, going, okay, taking those years that I got tied in and working with the O-line coaches and figuring out how to attack teams in the run game, and going back to the quarterback side. Okay, how can we look at and break down defenses in a linear teach progression? Because a lot of times, it's so abstract the way that we communicate about football, when really it's just a series of linear pieces of information. So putting that into structure that kids could follow and kind of learn on their own, and then put it into a book. Everything is so digital now. I feel like I want to do something more analog, and you could put it on your coffee table and open it up when you want, and get to you want to study cover 2 and the different looks of it.
Yes.
Just open to that page, and you don't have to open an app and, oh shoot, my friend just messaged me, and now you're distracted and you're down some rabbit hole on TikTok when you're trying to study your plays. So that was the thought with doing the QB method stuff now that I'm doing, just kind of going full circle back to quarterbacks and trying to communicate, just share with them what I know. Again, I had the chance to learn from Coach Tedford, who's, again, one of the greatest coaches and offensive gurus. It's interesting if he were to ever share his call log, anybody and everybody that's trying to score points is calling him for advice. So whether he's out of the spotlight now or not, he's still one of the godfathers of gaining yards and getting first downs.
Absolutely. I mean, that, I know Tedford, Kevin Moan, who I played with, he played against him in high school. So they've known each other for a long time. So we all sort of grew up together through college sports. But for me, it was like Roger Theater. Roger Theater coached, Joe Roth and Campbell, Rich Campbell, and many others around when Barkowski was around. And so when you meet those coaches, and I'm a defensive guy, when he started doing the quarterback camps in which he had J-Rod, he had Kaepernick and folks like that went on to do great things. I was out there helping him with the kids, and I'm a defensive guy, and I was like, man, this is what Tampa 2 can do to an offense, if you do it like Tampa did, or and trying to teach kids, signals and coverages and observation of movement and watching the eyes, the quarterback, and trying to do that I tell people, I was only 5'9.5" and 170 pounds, but it's the physics of the game that brings out the fire once you learn how to put those two together, like you're talking about, like the QB method. Once you get that piece, and you can do it at all levels. You may not think you're going to be in the Super Bowl. You may be in the Mighty Might Bowl. But once you get that piece together, there's no other feeling like that. And I appreciate what you've done and how you break that down. And it shows in how you live your life. And that's real, Nate.
And I got to say, just to spotlight this, it is called QB method. So for any young aspiring quarterbacks out there, you should definitely check that out. It's a curriculum designed to help QBs quickly diagnose defenses and attack their weaknesses. And all of that kind of brings me back to the relationship you had with Jeff Tedford. And Tedford would say oftentimes that he always loved your mental approach to the game. And you kind of just hit on it when you were talking about all the postgraduate work you've done and kind of like just how you're curious and you spend all this time studying and kind of going above and beyond to really understand something thoroughly. It's just a testament to you. I think Tedford obviously saw that in you above and beyond just your obvious physical gifts. But what does Tedford mean to you? And what are some important lessons that you learned from him?
He's been instrumental in my life, sharing his love for the game with me, and then, the love for preparation and what a good plan can do for you as far as reacting to adversity when things don't go your way. And then regardless of outcome, his approach to just working every day. So whether we won by 30 or we lost a game we should have won, there was no wavering in the method and what we were going to do to prepare. I didn't come in Monday and like, oh, I wonder how practice is going to be because either we won or we lost. You knew exactly what Monday was going to be, what the periods were, what the intensity was going to be, what the demands were going to be. And I think that's a good way to live, is regardless of the outcomes, you got to believe in the process. And then that becomes where the importance lies, and the success or failures kind of are a result of how well you're doing that process. But as a leader and as a coach, as a mentor, Coach Tedford, there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's none better. And so it was a little bittersweet competing against him for a few years as a coach on the opposite sideline. I knew what we were up against. And winning some and losing some was always a fun competition, and I appreciated all the back and forth, and he still, I don't know why, but he still answers my calls and still is willing to give me advice and share updates. So I appreciate it very much.
Well, it's obvious you're always going to be very special to him. There's no question about that. You could see that relationship just as a fan. You saw how close the two of you were, and that's great that you still have that strong relationship. Want to ask, we're going to get a little bit more into some questions about football in particular, but this is a question we ask all of our guests. What is it about Cal that makes it such a special place to you? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the excellence across everything. I think there's really no area where people aren't trying to achieve at the highest level at Cal. And I think that's motivating as an athlete. Is the biology department is trying to change the world with what they're doing. And so being asked to go and execute plays or work hard in the weight room or all that stuff, it's the rising tide raises all ships, and that's kind of true across every facet at Cal. And I think that makes it unique. A lot of other schools, there's like a, hey, don't look over there type of situation. And truthfully, when I committed to Cal, it was kind of like, don't look at the football, it was a little bit of that from an outsider, and so it was fun to go in there, even though I knew, okay, this thing's on the rise. This is going to be a fun journey to be a part of. And it was. And so I think that's what makes Cal special, is just the chasing of excellence and everything that they do.
Fiat Lux, baby. That's it.
Yep.
As I just talked about, having played for Roger Theater, I also played for, defensive-minded folks like Gunther Cunningham, and the greatest for me was Ron Lynn, Coach Ron Lynn, and the things that he did as a coordinator for us in that 82 season specifically, sort of the stalwart. But watching coaches ebb and flow, having played with, Ron Rivera and then seeing him be a head coach and, Riverboat Ron making decisions and bringing that cohesiveness together really showed me what we might have learned from not only Roger Theta, but Joe Cap. And Joe Cap, who had never coached ever in his life, put together a tremendous coaching staff to bring us into a whole nother world in 1982. And it wasn't a misfit group, but it was a combination of folks that a lot of them had the impact that were defensive minded. Even the folks that were offensive really saw the game from the other side of the ball. Tell me what that's like in your mind, doing what you're doing, understanding offense, defenses, looking at what's happening, Cal, from the Sonny Dykes to the Wilcox and other coaches you've come about in your studies and in your world. What do you know about that drive and that hunger that brings out the bear in them, if you will?
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about what makes Cal special, and I think one of the things is we all, when we're done playing, we're fans for life. Like there's nothing more than all the former players want than Cal to be back on top and winning all the games and back on college game day, like all those things. So right now I'm a fan of Cal and I want to see the success. And as I look at that, okay, what's our path to success for the Bears look like? Knowing, Wilcox was on the staff when I was a player, and now he's the head coach. And as a defensive coach, okay, what's the roadmap to success when you have a defensive head coach? And typically it's, toughness and fundamentals, and you're going to probably play well in the turnover margin. You'll probably have sound special teams, probably a little less risk taking than us offensive guys would like. I'd love fourth down to go for it every time, but good luck convincing a defensive coach to let that fly. That's they're trying to win the field position battle because they're not trying to give up touchdowns when they only got short fields to defend. So it's interesting just understanding, okay, when you have an offensive minded coach, you're going to take more chances. You're going to be willing to sacrifice field position for maybe another possession. Or if it's third and short, that's the perfect time for that play action. They've got 8 in the box. You can give a heavy sell and let's go for the touchdown. But, when you're an offensive coordinator answering to a defensive head coach, he wants you to get that first down, keep the offense on the field, let the defense rest, win the field position battle. So I think it's interesting that Wilcox has brought in 2 former head coaches on the offensive side. I envision a lot like when Nick Saban finally just said, okay, I'm done winning 17-14. Bring somebody in. Let's figure out how to score some more points. And then that's kind of Alabama we all remember now is the high scoring spread offenses, But before, if you look back, it was some ugly football at Alabama for a long time. They were winning, but it was different. Exactly.
Yeah.
They were winning by 4 in a cloud of dust. So I'm curious to see, as much as everybody else is, like, let's, what does Harsin, what does this offense look like from someone that has been a head coach, but now is also offensive coordinator. So, playing in the bowl game against those guys and all those new staff members were actually at the bowl. So I got to visit with them when we would do, the coaching staffs kind of have a few meals together and actions together. So I got to visit with those guys, and I'm excited for the future. I think it could go really well. And obviously as a quarterback, you'd love to see them take some more chances, especially when the defense thinks they have you figured out. Like it's not most comfortable, but that's when you got to do it. So I'm looking forward to some critical third or fourth down play actions and take a shot and try to get the points right then and there. So it'll be fun to watch.
I couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, it's like I've said it a number of times, but in football, just like in life, fortune favors the bold. Football is a game of aggression. You kind of need to have that aggressive edge. Whatever team is a little more aggressive generally is the team that's going to end up on top. So I'm with you 100% on that there, Nate.
Everywhere I am today when I do the Bear territory and game day this past season, people this, that, blah, 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 and said, "Oh man, you know, if you were here, like a junior, and they had NIL, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, everybody'd have a rover, you know, but and I was saying it facetiously, but one, I know what I would do, especially being from where I'm here in the community. Be able to do something for my own city would be the greatest thing, playing in the backyard. But I think that when it comes down to it, everybody, I mean, even with Reza, Reza was like, "Oh no, this NIL, what's going on? We lost." And I was like, "Stop throwing the toys out the cart. We're going to be okay."
You walked me off the ledge.
He called me. He was like, "Ahmad, we just lost so and so." I said, "Dude, I'm at work. I got to call you back." "Dude, we lost so." "Dude, I told you I'll call you back." And then you start looking, and not that it didn't make us flinch, but we had to recognize this is happening all over the country. And not just, it's happening at North Dakota, South Dakota. Folks are leaving there who've had great teams and going on to bigger shows to really do what they're doing in college. So right now, we've gone through, like you talked about, you're waiting to see, you're experiencing it in real time. What does that look like, and the impact on rosters? That's craziness.
Yeah, anybody that expects these kids to sit still is not in touch with reality. Like if you give pros yearly free agency, it's in their best interest to move every year. That's just, for whatever reason, that's the nature of the beast. Is if they have any market value as a good player at all, there's going to be demand and somebody else is going to want them. Is what they don't understand is a lot of times they're trading a lot of the same players for just a new face, which in the long run will hurt the program with your ability to build culture and then establish systems and procedures. And okay, here's what we expectations and standards and all that stuff. And so you end up in this transactional society, which isn't the end of the world. You can still figure out how to make that work. Like we've been in jobs that's very transactional, and it still works. You can still work together. You'll have the same goal. But I think what it's going to do is you're not going to be able to build rosters, unfortunately, like we had back in the day. I don't know how many NFL players were on that 2016, but there was way more than we could afford now. I'll tell you, there was way more first rounders than any team could probably ever afford right now. So
no doubt.
The days of development, if you do get a good player, I think there's some edges to be won in high school recruiting and then developing and getting to play those guys early before their values skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
I think teams and coaches that are willing to do that will constantly have a better roster than the second stringer who feels like they should be playing from a bigger school.
Right.
So
right.
I think there's some ways to win this game now. It's interesting. Probably no one's ever brought this up in the casual circles, but what's happening is because these teams are so new face heavy, the schemes are getting simpler. So defensively, there used to be a lot of complicated defenses, and depending on what team you were facing, you knew they had kind of a DNA of that defensive coach that he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those are labor intensive, and you got to have a lot of time on task to execute those nuanced rules in that defense. So what you're seeing across the board is a lot of just man to man, because that the best players have only been on that team for 6 months, and that coach isn't comfortable with new installs. So you're seeing this simplified version of football because, hey, I got to get my best players on the field. And it's not the football is worse, but schematically and the nuance and maybe the fundamentals and maybe the kind of the spice of that coach are kind of going away in favor of trying to get these new players that may not know the scheme best execute simple defenses or offensive or plays. So that's kind of what I think where it's headed. I think there's some things in the works now to see a lot less movement. I think when you start talking about kids having to pay back NIL to move and there's buyouts, I think that a lot of kids are going to get trapped with these contracts and this money. So I think you've kind of seen the peak of the transfer portal. I think it'll start to be less and less from here moving forward.
Well, it reminds me of a roller coaster that, the daredevils always want to sit in the front, put their hands up, or sit in the back and get the whiplash. There's going to be a lot more folks holding on tight to be able to hold on to that spot on that team and make sure they're able to fulfill, the value proposition of being a starter or just even playing on the field. But I think you're right. The other piece is, there's Reza calls it musical chairs, but it's almost like Rochambeau because there's going to be this moment in time when there's going to be a shift and folks are going to be looking to either go back to the conference they were in or settle into the conference where they're at or go shopping again for do you have love for me like I have love for you conference opportunity. And we've learned that, it's best to not only know the foxtrot, but to know how to crump and do the moonwalk in order to be able to get to the next conference, because you got to show all your wares, not just on the football field, but across all your sports, because we have folks doing this, doing that. They want to say, well, you participate on the north, or in the west and the east, and then we'll do a show here, we'll do a regional, and then bring everybody together. It's crazy. Where do you think Cal will show up to do their next show?
I have a hope that there will be some national roll up. Like I wouldn't be against, let the SEC and Big Ten have their whatever they want to call it, and then let's get something that makes more sense for everybody else. And asking kids to fly to the East Coast multiple times, like, football is easy. We play each team once. Like, I can't imagine these other sports have any semblance of real life having to make that. I don't like making it, one time a year. So hopefully there's some common sense that prevails here. I don't hate the ACC. I think it's actually a good fit academically and athletically, but obviously for the other sports, it's not ideal.
Thank you, my brother.
I know you got this question, Reza. Come on.
I've gotta hit you. Gotta hit you with this.
And I've got an answer for you that no one's ever heard. So
let me get the popcorn. Hold up, baby.
Everybody, the question that everybody wants to know, and no, it's not bear territory for this one. Did you ever meet Jessica Simpson?
All right, so this is going to be the quick version because I know my man's got a 7:00 hot date over there. So we got so it was the Oregon game at Cal, right? ESPN comes to do their feature, and I'm tired of answering. I think we're going to win. Our whole focus that week is we're going to win this game. But when you do press, you can't say that. Or at least you shouldn't. Kids now, they're saying crazy stuff. But
right
then we were trained, coach had us, he was leaving nothing to chance. All right, here's what you can say, here's what you can't say. I was just tired of answering the questions of like, oh, they're so good, it's gonna be a good game. Like, so I was like, I need to talk about something. There was one game my mom came alone and I left the ticket for her and Jessica Simpson. And I was like, you know what, I'll just do this for fun for my mom every time. Like, we'll just leave and she'll think maybe she'll show up. So I was like, I'm tired of talking about Oregon's team. I'm going to talk about this for this lead up. So it gets some play during the game. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So the next year we're at Oregon and it's college game day. Guess whose publicist reaches out about coming to the game?
Stop it.
Yeah. So she reaches out, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and she shut that shit down.
The mama bear came out for real.
That's what happened. That's what happened. And
that is the best, Nate.
That's my daughter's mother right there. She shut that down. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Awesome. What they say? Be careful for what you wish for.
There you go. Shoulda, woulda, coulda right there. You're the only one that knows that now, fellas.
Well, everybody else gonna know.
Tell the whole damn world.
Tell the whole damn world. Well, that leads to the next question we ask everybody, because that's been one of the best answers we've had since we've started this podcast the day after the big game last year. But here we go. There's many, many moments that you've had in life. You've shared a number with us. We've seen a lot of them. You even just laid a big one on us. But tell us, my man, the man with the golden trigger, what is your Bear Territory moment of all time?
My favorite Bear Territory moment has to be the relationships, the global relationships of the connections I've made with players, that the friendships that have lasted, the moments, the games, the results, they all come and go. But the relationships, the moment we sweat during practice, the arguments on day 20 of camp, and we know we're just pissed off because it's hot and we're ready to finally play against somebody else. But it was all the sweat and all the tears that we shared together are truly what I'm grateful for as being a Cal Bear.
That is a great answer, Nate, honestly. And man, I got to tell you, I mean, it's so much fun having these conversations with you, and you can totally see how you're a great coach. You're going to continue to have much success in your coaching career, because the way that you kind of approach things and your answers about the NIL stuff, I mean, really interesting takes on all that stuff.
Yeah.
I can completely understand why you were one of Tedford's favorite of all time. And you will always be one of the Golden Bears fans' favorite of all times. Never forget that, Nate. You are always welcome back here at Berkeley. We would love to get together, grab a drink, and treat you well, because you are, like Ahmad said earlier, you are one of our superheroes. So thank you so much.
Look here, baby.
Leave
me a ticket whenever you do your thing. When you get to that big show, you say, "Hey, Ahmad, this is for Bear Territory. I don't know where you are. You're probably trying to make that 7:00 date. But look, if you have a moment, I got a ticket for you, baby. And trust me, if I can get there, I will get there.
I will leave it. But the deal is, you got to show up in a Cal jersey.
Baby, there ain't no problem. I ain't no problem. Look, I will Jenny Craig my ass into one. Trust me.
Love it. I love it. I love it.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Nate. And we'll end it the way we always end it and say, "Go Bears!
Go Bears!
Go Bears!"
How much fun was that? Both Ahmad and I were laughing so hard at that Jessica Simpson story. I hope we didn't blow out your speakers. I'm really looking forward to sitting down with Nate the next time he's in Berkeley and throwing back a few drinks. He promised he's got more great stories to share. This podcast is entirely a labor of love and a reflection of how much we love our university. Please help us grow this podcast by telling the whole damn world about us. As I noted at the top of the show, just tell all your Cal friends to go to tellthewholedamnworld.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate all of you out there listening and watching. See you next Monday. This podcast is about celebrating all things Cal and the prominent people who are passionate about the University of California. Do you feel Cal is the center of the universe? Do you bleed blue and gold? We want you to tell the whole damn world about it. Go Bears!